The phone buzzed against my desk, an unknown number flashing across the screen. I almost ignored it, another spam call, probably. But something made me pick it up, and those 12 words changed everything. Check your joint account. Your husband isn't who you think he is. My name is Morgan, and until that moment, I thought I had my life figured out. 15 years of marriage, a comfortable routine, and enough mutual respect to weather the occasional storm. At least, that's what I told myself. I stared at my computer screen, cursor hovering over the login button for our bank account. My hands trembled slightly as I typed in the password. One click, and the numbers loaded. They didn't make sense at first, columns of transactions, dates, amounts that shouldn't exist. Morgan? Janet from accounting poked her head around my cubicle. The quarterly review meeting starts in 5. I'll be right there. My voice sounded hollow, distant. The screen showed regular withdrawals, 5,000 here, 8,000 there. Money flowing out like water through cupped hands, all to an account I didn't recognize. I grabbed my phone and dialed Greg's number. Straight to voicemail. Of course. Hey, you've reached Greg Mitchell. Leave a message. I hung up. The quarterly review droned on endlessly. I sat there, nodding mechanically while my mind raced through years of memories, searching for signs I must have missed. The late nights at the office. The business trips that seemed to multiply. The way he'd started password protecting his phone last year. Morgan, what are your thoughts on the new client acquisition strategy? My boss's voice cut through the fog. I think we need to dig deeper into the numbers, I heard myself say. Sometimes things aren't what they appear to be on the surface. After the meeting, I called my brother Lucas. I need you to look something up for me, I said when he answered. You still have access to those banking databases, right? Morgan? What's going on? Just, please. I'll explain later. He sighed. Give me the account number. I read it off my screen, trying to keep my voice steady. 20 minutes later, my phone buzzed with a text from Lucas, call me. Now. I locked myself in the bathroom before dialing. Tell me. The account belongs to Samantha Reeves, Lucas said. She's an executive at Innovatech. Greg's company. The fluorescent lights hummed overhead as I gripped the edge of the sink. How much? Morgan. How much, Lucas? Over 200,000 in the past year alone. The number hit me like a physical blow. $200,000. Our savings, our future, our trust, all of it funneled into some other woman's account. There's more, Lucas continued. They've been booking hotel rooms. Expensive ones. And there are charges for jewelry, restaurants. Morgan, I'm so sorry. I stared at my reflection in the bathroom mirror. The woman looking back at me seemed different somehow, harder, colder. Don't be sorry, I said. Be helpful. I need everything you can find on both of them. What are you planning? I don't know yet. But even as I said it, something was crystallizing inside me, a determination as sharp as broken glass. But Greg's about to learn something about karma. Morgan. I have to go. I ended the call and straightened my blazer, checking my reflection one last time. The woman in the mirror smiled back at me, and it wasn't a nice smile. Greg always said I was too forgiving, too willing to see the best in people. He was about to discover just how wrong he'd been about that, about everything. I walked back to my desk, opened a new document, and began to type. The first step in dismantling someone's life is making a list of everything they hold dear. And after 15 years of marriage, I knew exactly where all Greg's weak spots were. My childhood home hadn't changed in 20 years. Same faded wallpaper, same creaking third step on the porch, same judgmental silence from my father as I wheeled my suitcase through the front door. $200,000. Dad's voice cut through the quiet like a knife. Lucas had already called them, of course. How did you not notice? Tom. Mom appeared from the kitchen, wiping her hands on a dish towel. Let her at least get settled first. I dropped my bag by the stairs, the weight of failure pressing down on my shoulders. It's fine, Mom. Dad's right. I should have seen it. Damn right you should have. Dad paced the living room, his military posture rigid with disapproval. I told you 15 years ago that man was trouble. Didn't I say it, Evelyn? What you said or didn't say doesn't matter now, Mom shot back. She guided me toward the kitchen, where the smell of her signature pot roast filled the air. What matters is helping Morgan figure out her next steps. Her next steps should be calling the police, Lucas called from the dining room. He was hunched over his laptop, probably digging deeper into Greg's finances. The bastard committed fraud. I sank into a kitchen chair, watching Mom slice carrots with precise, angry movements. It's not that simple. Like hell it isn't. Dad joined us, his presence filling the small kitchen. He stole from you. From your future. And what about my reputation? The words burst out before I could stop them. You think anyone's going to want to work with an accountant who couldn't even spot her own husband embezzling money? Silence fell, broken only by the rhythmic chopping of Mom's knife. Morgan. Lucas looked up from his screen. There's something else you need to see. I didn't want to look. But I found myself moving anyway, leaning over his shoulder to stare at the screen. Credit card statements, restaurant receipts, hotel bookings, a paper trail of betrayal stretching back 3 years. 3 years, I whispered. We were still trying for a baby 3 years ago. Mom's knife clattered against the cutting board. That miserable son of a. Evelyn, Dad warned, but there was no heat in it. No, Tom. I watched our daughter blame herself for not getting pregnant, while that man, she stopped, her face flushed with anger. I've got more, Lucas said quietly. Samantha Reeves isn't just his mistress. She's on Innovateca's board of directors. The money, it's not just going to hotels and jewelry. I straightened up, something cold and calculating settling into my chest. What do you mean? They're investing it. Starting some kind of tech venture on the side. Using company resources, from what I can tell. Dad's eyebrows shot up. That's corporate espionage. That's leverage, I corrected, my mind already racing ahead. Lucas, can you get me proof? Something concrete? Morgan. Mom's voice held a warning. Think carefully about what you're planning. I am thinking carefully. I turned to face her, seeing the concern in her eyes. For the first time in 15 years, I'm thinking with perfect clarity. Revenge won't fix this, she said softly. No. I managed a smile that felt more like baring teeth. But it'll be a damn good start. Dad cleared his throat. You know, when I was in the service, we had a saying, the best revenge is served institutionally. Lucas snorted. Pretty sure that's not the actual saying, Dad. The point is, Dad continued, if you're going to do this, do it right. Make it count. I looked around at my family, Mom's worried strength, Dad's stern support, Lucas's protective fury. They'd seen this coming 15 years ago, when Greg had charmed his way into my life with smooth words and bigger dreams. They'd watched me ignore the red flags, choose him over their concerns, build my life around his lies. I need your help, I said finally. All of you. But this has to be done my way. Mom wiped her hands again, a determined set to her jaw. Well then, sweetheart. Let's make a plan. The pot roast grew cold on the counter as we gathered around Lucas's laptop, plotting the systematic dismantling of Greg Mitchell's carefully constructed world. By midnight, I had the beginnings of a strategy that would make him wish he'd never heard the name Morgan Mitchell. Or whatever I decided to call myself after the divorce. Innovateca's headquarters loomed before me, all glass and steel reaching toward the sky. I adjusted my visitor's badge, remembering countless dinner parties where Greg had bragged about this building, about his rising star in the company. Now I was here to watch that star crash and burn. Miss Mitchell? The receptionist's voice pulled me from my thoughts. Mr. Chin will see you now. I smoothed my skirt and gripped my briefcase tighter. Inside were copies of every transaction, every secret meeting, every lie Greg had carefully constructed over the past 3 years. Lucas had done his job well. Morgan Mitchell. James Chen, Innovateca's CFO, stood as I entered his office. I have to admit, I was intrigued by your email. You mentioned concerns about internal financial irregularities? Yes. I placed my briefcase on his desk, noting the family photo behind him. Wife, 2 kids, golden retriever. A man with everything to lose if scandal hit. Perfect. But before we begin, I should mention that my brother works in financial forensics at the FBI. Chen's smile flickered. I see. And why is that relevant? I pulled out the first file. Because what I'm about to show you isn't just about my divorce from Greg Mitchell. It's about protecting Innovatec from what's coming. 2 hours later, I stood in the parking garage, hands shaking as I fumbled for my car keys. Chen's face had gone from skeptical to ashen as I'd laid out the evidence. The shell companies. The diverted contracts. The technical specifications being sold to competitors. My phone buzzed. Greg's name flashed on the screen. You visited my office today. His voice was tight, controlled. My secretary said you left something for me. Just divorce papers, Greg. Nothing to worry about. Then why did James Chen cancel our meeting and clear his afternoon schedule? I smiled, remembering the manila envelope I'd left on Greg's desk. Empty, except for a post-it note, I know everything. Maybe he had something more important to deal with. Like the company's future. Morgan. His voice dropped lower. Whatever you think you know. 3 years, Greg. 3 years of lies while I blamed myself for not being enough. For not giving you a child. Tell me, does Samantha know about the vasectomy you got in 2019? Silence crackled across the line. You want to play games? The facade cracked, revealing the anger beneath. Fine. But remember who knows all your secrets too. Like that audit you fudged for the Peterson account last year. My blood ran cold. He'd promised never to mention that, my one professional compromise, made to protect a client's dying business. You wouldn't. Try me. You've got 24 hours to retract whatever you told Chen, or I start making calls. The line went dead. I leaned against my car, breath coming in short gasps. The parking garage spun around me as Greg's threat sank in. One phone call could end my career, destroy everything I'd worked for. My phone buzzed again. Lucas. Tell me you didn't go to Innovatec alone, he said without preamble. I had to move fast. Chen was. Damn it, Morgan. Greg just called his lawyer. They're preparing some kind of preemptive strike. He's bluffing. But my voice wavered. No, he's desperate. And desperate men are dangerous. Get back to Mom and Dad's. Now. I started the car with trembling hands. As I pulled out of the garage, a familiar Mercedes pulled in Samantha's car. She saw me, our eyes meeting briefly through windshields. Something passed between us, recognition, maybe understanding. She knew what it was like to trust Greg Mitchell's lies. But unlike her, I wasn't going to be just another woman he destroyed. My phone buzzed one more time. Unknown number, like the first warning about the bank account. The message was simple, there's more. Meet me tomorrow, 9 a.m., Riverside Cafe. I took a deep breath, thinking of the empty envelope on Greg's desk, of Chen's pale face, of Samantha's knowing look. The game was escalating faster than I'd planned, spinning beyond my careful strategies into something darker and more dangerous. But I was done being careful. Greg wanted to play with fire. Fine. I'd burn his whole world down, even if I had to burn with it. The Riverside Cafe buzzed with morning traffic, but the woman at the corner table sat alone, her red manicure tapping against a manila envelope. I recognized her instantly, Sarah Peterson, my former client's wife. The one whose audit I'd falsified. I wondered how long it would take Greg to use this against you, she said as I slid into the seat across from her. My throat tightened. He called you. Actually, Sarah smiled, pushing the envelope toward me. I called him. After I sent you that first text about checking your bank account. The world tilted sideways. I stared at her, pieces clicking into place. You knew. About Samantha, about everything. Karen in accounting at Innovatech is my sister. She noticed the irregularities months ago, but Greg threatened her job. Sarah's smile hardened. Nobody threatens my family. I opened the envelope with shaking hands. Inside were documents, dozens of them. Bank statements, emails, photographs. Evidence of corruption that went far beyond what Lucas and I had uncovered. Greg's not just stealing from Innovatech, Sarah continued. He's selling proprietary technology to Chinese competitors. That's why he needed Samantha, her connections in the Asian market. Why are you showing me this? Because he's going to try to destroy you with that audit, Morgan. And I won't let him use my family's business to do it. My phone buzzed, Lucas calling again. I ignored it. The audit wasn't fake, Sarah said quietly. We really were in trouble. You just helped us show the numbers in a more favorable light. But here's what Greg doesn't know. She tapped the envelope. We kept 2 sets of books. The real numbers actually matched your audit. You didn't falsify anything. Relief flooded through me, followed quickly by rage. Greg had held this over me for nothing. There's more, Sarah added. Samantha's getting nervous. She reached out to Karen yesterday. She wants to make a deal. The cafe door chimed. I glanced up to see my mother walking in, her face tight with worry. Lucas must have called her. Morgan. She reached our table, hands twisting her purse strap. Greg just showed up at the house. He's talking to your father. What? I stood so quickly my chair scraped across the floor. Why didn't you call me? Because I needed to tell you in person. Mom's voice dropped. He's not alone. He brought someone from the SEC with him. Sarah cursed under her breath. He's moving faster than we thought. The Securities and Exchange Commission? My voice sounded distant, hollow. He's really going to. He's trying to get ahead of the story, Sarah cut in. Make himself look like the whistleblower before everything comes out. Classic Greg. Mom touched my arm. Your father's stalling him, but nothing. I grabbed the envelope, my mind racing. Sarah, can your sister get us into Innovatech tonight? Karen has after-hours access, yes. Why? I thought of Greg in my parents' living room, probably sitting in Dad's favorite chair, playing the concerned ex-husband. Trying to destroy me while acting like he was doing everyone a favor. Because we're not waiting anymore. Tell Samantha if she wants to make a deal, she has until midnight. After that, everything goes public, her involvement included. Morgan, Mom started, but I was already heading for the door. Call Lucas, I told her. Tell him to meet me at Innovatech with every piece of evidence we have. And Mom? I turned back, seeing the worry in her eyes. Tell Dad to keep Greg there as long as possible. I need time to set this up. Set what up? I thought of Greg's smug face, of Samantha's knowing look in the parking garage, of all the nights I'd spent crying over a marriage that had been a lie from the start. His downfall. I pushed through the cafe door into the morning sun. It's time Greg learned what it feels like to lose everything. Behind me, I heard Sarah's quiet laugh. I'll call Karen. And Morgan? Make it hurt. I didn't answer. I was already dialing James Chen's number, the weight of Sarah's envelope heavy in my bag. Greg thought he could bury me with lies. He was about to learn just how wrong he was. Innovatech's security desk was empty when we arrived at 11:45 p.m. Karen Peterson's keycard got us through the lobby, but my hands wouldn't stop shaking as we rode the elevator to the executive floor. You sure about this? Lucas asked, clutching his laptop bag. Once we upload these files to the company servers, there's no taking it back. The elevator dinged. 36th floor. Greg's office would be dark now, waiting for tomorrow's board meeting where he planned to destroy me. Morgan? Samantha's voice made us both jump. She stood in the hallway, still wearing her designer suit from earlier. I got your message. You said we could make a deal? Lucas stepped forward, but I caught his arm. Something in Samantha's stance felt wrong. Too rigid. Too rehearsed. Where's Greg? I asked quietly. A familiar chuckle echoed down the hall. Greg emerged from his office, followed by two men in dark suits. Right here, darling. Did you really think Samantha would turn on me? That anyone would believe you over me? The sec has already seen the evidence, Lucas snapped. You mean these? Greg held up Sarah's envelope. My stomach dropped. Amazing what a concerned citizen can find in a cafe when someone leaves their table unattended. I felt the blood drain from my face. Mom's arrival. The rush to leave. I'd been so focused on getting to Innovatech that I hadn't noticed. The real question, Greg continued, is what the sec will think about an accountant who falsifies audits, then tries to frame her ex-husband when he discovers her crime. That audit wasn't falsified, I said, but my voice wavered. Prove it. Greg's smile widened. Oh wait, you can't. Because the only copy of the Petersons' real books burned in that tragic office fire last week. Such a shame. The pieces clicked together. The fire. Sarah's revelation. It had all been orchestrated. You son of a bitch. Lucas moved toward Greg, but the sec agents stepped forward. I wouldn't, Greg warned. Assaulting a federal witness wouldn't look good for either of you. My mind raced. Everything we'd gathered, every piece of evidence, was worthless without Sarah's documents to back them up. Greg had played us perfectly. Why? The word scraped out of my throat. Why go through all this? You already had everything. Because you wouldn't let go. Greg's facade cracked, revealing something ugly beneath. Even after I left, you kept pushing, kept digging. I built this life, Morgan. Everything I am. And you thought you could just tear it down? You built it on lies. I built it on whatever I had to. He nodded to the agents. She's all yours, gentlemen. Wait. Samantha's voice cut through the tension. She hadn't moved from her spot, hadn't even blinked. There's something you should see first. She pulled out her phone, tapped the screen. A familiar voice filled the hallway, Greg's voice, from earlier that day. Burn the evidence, just like the Peterson files. Morgan won't know what hit her. Greg's face went slack. What are you doing? Insurance. Samantha's perfectly manicured finger hovered over her phone. Karen's not the only one who keeps records, Greg. And unlike you, I learn from my mistakes. The sec agents exchanged glances. One reached for his phone. You really should be more careful about who you trust, I said quietly, watching Greg's world crumble in real time. Karma's funny that way. Greg lunged for Samantha's phone. Everything happened at once, Lucas tackling Greg, agents shouting, Samantha backing away with a satisfied smile. And me, standing in the middle of it all, watching 15 years of lies finally catch fire. My phone buzzed. A text from Sarah, check your email. Karen kept copies of everything. Let him burn. I looked at Greg, pinned beneath Lucas while the agents read him his rights. He caught my eye, and for the first time, I saw real fear there. Good. Send it all, I texted back to Sarah. Then I walked away, leaving Greg to face the consequences of his own perfect trap. Sometimes the best revenge isn't setting the fire yourself. It's just making sure all the right people are there to watch it burn. The Innovatech Awards ceremony buzzed with artificial cheer, executives in expensive suits pretending they hadn't just watched their star employee led away in handcuffs. I sat at the back, my laptop open to emails that would destroy everything Greg had built, waiting for the perfect moment. James Chen approached my table, his face ashen. The board wants to handle this internally. Of course they do. I didn't look up from my screen. How much is Greg offering them? Enough to make this go away. Chen loosened his tie. He's claiming temporary insanity, stress from the divorce. Says he'll return everything. My finger hovered over the send button. One click would send evidence of Greg's crimes to every major financial publication in the country. And Samantha? Claiming she was manipulated. She's willing to testify against Greg in exchange for immunity. Of course she was. I watched her across the room, already cozying up to board members, spinning her own version of events. She caught my eye and raised her champagne glass in a mock toast. The board's prepared to offer you a settlement, Chen continued. Substantial compensation, full NDAs on both sides. Everyone saves face. My phone buzzed. Lucas, don't do anything yet. Greg's lawyer called. He's got something on Dad. The room tilted sideways. I thought of my father's military career, his government contracts, the consulting work he did after retirement. How much had Greg learned over 15 years of family dinners? Morgan? Chen's voice seemed distant. We need an answer. Another text from Lucas, Dad's meeting with Greg now. Says to wait. The podium microphone crackled. Ladies and gentlemen, if we could begin. I closed my laptop, feeling the weight of every decision, every move that had led to this moment. The evidence would destroy Greg, yes. But how many others would burn with him? My father. The Peterson family. Hundreds of Innovatech employees. Your father's here. Chen nodded toward the entrance. Dad stood there in his best suit, face carved from stone. Behind him, Greg's lawyer wore a smile that made my stomach turn. 2 minutes, I told Chen, already moving toward them. Dad met me halfway. You need to delete those emails. What did he find? Doesn't matter. His military posture was rigid, but I saw the fear in his eyes. Some mistakes should stay buried, Morgan. Like Greg's mistakes? The ones that destroyed my life? No. Dad gripped my arm. Like the ones that could destroy everything I built for this family. Everything I did to protect you and Lucas. Understanding hit like a physical blow. The consulting work. The classified contracts. The money that always seemed to appear when we needed it. How bad? Bad enough that Greg's lawyer has already called Washington. Dad's voice cracked. I did what I had to do, Morgan. For my family. Just like you're doing now. But some fires burn everything they touch. The microphone squealed again. And now, to present our annual Innovation Award. I looked around the room, at Samantha playing the victim, at Chen sweating through his suit, at the board members pretending nothing was wrong. All of us tangled in webs of our own making. My phone buzzed one final time. A message from Greg, we're not so different, you and I. We both know the price of protecting what's ours. The laptop felt heavy in my hands. One click to burn it all down. One click to save my father. One click to become exactly what Greg had always been, someone who'd sacrifice anything, anyone, to win. Morgan. Dad's voice was soft now. Sometimes the hardest thing isn't fighting. It's knowing when to stop. I opened my laptop, staring at the draft emails. All that evidence, all that righteous fury, all that carefully planned revenge. And in the end, Greg had found the one thing I couldn't sacrifice. My fingers moved across the keyboard. Delete. 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 Across the room, Samantha raised her glass again. This time, her smile held something like respect. I closed the laptop and stood. Let's go home, Dad. Sometimes the greatest victory isn't in winning the war. It's in choosing which battles aren't worth the cost of victory. The envelope arrived 3 days after I deleted the evidence. Plain white, no return address, containing a single USB drive and a note in Samantha's elegant handwriting, choose wisely. I sat in my car outside Innovateca's headquarters, watching Greg through the lobby windows. He was back at work, the board's protection buying him a second chance he didn't deserve. My father's secrets had bought his freedom, but secrets had a way of surfacing. My phone buzzed. "Lucas, you sure about this?" I didn't respond. The USB drive felt heavy in my pocket as I walked through the lobby, past security, into the elevator. Greg's office was on the top floor now, a promotion for keeping quiet about irregularities in the company's finances. He looked up when I entered, that familiar smirk playing at his lips. "Come to negotiate?" "Something like that." I placed Samantha's USB drive on his desk. "She left the country this morning. Dubai, I think. But she left you a parting gift." The smirk faltered. "What game are you playing, Morgan?" "The one you taught me." I sat down, crossing my legs. "See, I've been thinking about what you said. About protecting what's ours." Greg picked up the drive, turning it over in his hands. "Samantha's gone? With most of your offshore accounts." I smiled as his face paled. "Turns out she was better at your game than you were." "You're bluffing. Check your accounts." I waited while he typed, watched the blood drain from his face. "She left copies of everything. Every transaction, every deal, every secret you ever kept. Insurance, she called it. I'll destroy it." "You could. But then the backup copies would go straight to the FBI." I leaned forward. "Not the SEC this time. The real FBI. The kind that doesn't care about corporate settlements or NDAs." Greg's hands shook slightly as he set down the drive. "What do you want?" "A confession. Public. Full. You'll return every penny you stole, resign from Innovatec, and clear my father's name." "Or what?" "Or I stop protecting you." The words felt like ice in my mouth. "Everything you have left, your reputation, your freedom, your future, exists because I chose to delete those emails. I can unmake that choice." "You wouldn't." But uncertainty crept into his voice. "Your father has nothing left to hide." We spent the last 3 days clearing his name through proper channels. Amazing what military connections can do when properly motivated. Greg stood abruptly, pacing behind his desk. "I'll fight this." "Like Samantha fought you?" "How did it feel, Greg, watching someone you trusted turn everything against you?" "I loved you," he whispered. "No. You loved winning." I stood, smoothing my skirt. "You have until tomorrow morning to decide. Confession or destruction. Your choice." "And if I confess?" His voice cracked. "What do you get out of it?" "The truth. Sometimes that's enough." I walked to the door, then paused. "You know what the difference is between us, Greg?" I learned when to stop. "You never did. Morgan." He called after me, desperation edging into his voice. "What if I told you everything? About the money, about Samantha, about all of it?" "I already know everything." I turned back one last time. "The question is, do you know enough to save yourself?" The elevator doors closed on his stricken face. In my pocket, my phone buzzed with a message from Samantha. "It's done. Accounts emptied. Evidence secured. Good luck." I smiled, thinking of Greg discovering that his partner in crime had played him just as thoroughly as he'd played me. Sometimes the best revenge isn't dealing the final blow yourself, it's orchestrating the perfect moment for someone else to do it. Tomorrow, Greg would either confess or be destroyed. Either way, I'd win. Not through the scorched earth tactics he'd taught me, but by being smarter, more patient, more willing to let others play their parts in his downfall. The real victory wasn't in the revenge itself. It was in choosing how to execute it. The morning news played silently on the cafe's wall-mounted TV. Greg's confession scrolled across the bottom of the screen while his drawn face filled the frame above. I stirred my coffee, remembering a time when that face had meant everything to me. Quite a performance, Sarah Peterson said, sliding into the seat across from me. Though I suspect the tears were real. They always were. I pushed a manila envelope across the table. Your share of the recovered funds. Karen's too. Sarah pocketed the envelope without checking it. Samantha sent a postcard from Dubai. Says the weather's perfect. And the offshore accounts? Drained. Every penny going back to Innovateca's investors. She studied my face. Having second thoughts? I watched Greg on the screen, reading his carefully prepared statement. The same words I'd written for him, confessing to everything except what he'd truly stolen, 15 years of trust, of dreams, of believing in something that never existed. No thoughts at all, actually. I surprised myself by meaning it. That's the strange part. My phone buzzed, Lucas sending updates from the FBI investigation. I ignored it. The aftermath would play out without my help now, dominoes falling in a pattern I'd stopped caring about. Your father called me, Sarah said quietly. Wanted to thank us for helping clear his name. Did you tell him it was Samantha's idea? Using Greg's own tactics against him? I told him his daughter learned to fight smart instead of angry. Sarah's lips curved. He seemed proud. The cafe door chimed. Mom walked in, carrying a box of my things from the house. Ready? I stood, leaving cash for the coffee. Sarah caught my wrist. Was it worth it? All of it? Through the window, I could see the moving truck idling outside. Everything I owned packed inside, ready for wherever I decided to go next. No plan, no revenge plot, no carefully constructed strategy. Just possibility. The revenge wasn't the point, I said finally. It was learning I didn't need it. Morgan. Sarah's voice stopped me again. The anonymous tip about Greg's accounts. It wasn't Samantha, was it? I thought of the late nights studying Greg's patterns, of the quiet satisfaction of beating him at his own game. Of the moment I realized I could destroy him completely, and the moment I chose not to. Does it matter? Sarah smiled. I suppose not. Mom waited by the door, patient as always. On the TV, Greg's confession ended. The anchor's lips moved silently, probably speculating about criminal charges and corporate fallout. None of it seemed important anymore. You know what the funny thing is? I said, more to myself than Sarah. He taught me everything I needed to take him down. The planning, the manipulation, the perfect timing. But he never taught me when to stop. And who taught you that? I looked at Mom, remembering her quiet strength during those first days of discovery. Dad's stern wisdom about choosing battles. Lucas's protective fury giving way to calculated strategy. Family, I guess. I shouldered my bag. The real kind. Outside, the morning sun caught the edge of the moving truck's metal side, flashing like a signal. Mom squeezed my arm. Where to? I thought of Samantha in Dubai, of Sarah's quiet revenge, of Greg's tears on national television. Of all the ways people choose to heal or hurt or move forward. Somewhere new, I said. Somewhere without ghosts. The truck pulled away from the curb, carrying the physical remnants of my old life. But the lessons, about power, about choice, about the fine line between justice and vengeance, those would stay with me. Greg had taught me how to destroy someone's world. My family had taught me how to rebuild my own. I chose the latter. Through the cafe window, I saw Sarah raise her coffee cup in a final salute. On the TV above her, Greg's face had been replaced by the next story, the next scandal, the next cycle of revenge and redemption. I didn't look back.